going on, everybody, and welcome back to Movie Files. Elliot here, and as promised from our last video, which was our spoiler-free review for Avengers Endgame, I said I want to do a spoiler review, and I am here to do so. We're going to dive deep into all of the big events that happened in arguably the biggest film of all time, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as far as the numbers so far today as I'm recording this video. But before we get into this big discussion, I want to thank you guys for clicking on this video. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell to stay up to date with our latest movie reviews, TV reviews, trailer reactions, unboxing videos for new releases, as well as giveaways. So definitely subscribe to our channel. And also, with this being a spoiler-filled review, do me a favor, start your commenting now. No holds bars. Let me know what you thought of all the big events, what you think is going to happen, and everything you guys are thinking about this film. Start the commenting now. So with that being said, let's jump into this massive spoiler review for Avengers Endgame. So as I had mentioned, this is a spoiler review. So again, we're going to dive deep into all of the big events. So the way I want to do this spoiler review, if you guys actually watched my last year's review that I did for Avengers Infinity War, it's about a 40-minute video, and I dove into theories and all the good and the bad and everything of that nature. I'm going to sort of do that in the same manner, but I want to break this review down in the sense of the first act, the second act, and the third act. And also within that, I'm going to kind of theorize and tell you what I thought about those particular events. Because like I said, if you watch my previous review, I gave it a 4.8 out of 5. But being 3 days removed from the film now, my score may have changed. I'll get to that later, a little bit later in the video. But I'm just going to let you guys know what I liked about the first, second, and third act, and also kind of break it down in that manner. So let's just jump right into it. All right, so starting in the first act, we get the big opening scene. Again, no credits, no nothing. It just starts right off. We see Clint Barton with his family. You know, he's teaching his daughter how to use the bow and arrow. The wife's in the back making some hot dogs for the kids, and there's a little joke there about mayo and all that good stuff. And it brings you, it's crazy. So they put you back in that emotional state because we all knew that what was going to happen. You know, well, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us nerds that kind of theorized and broke down everything and what we thought was going to happen, figured that Hawkeye was going to probably lose his family, and that's where the Ronin persona would have came in later in the film. So we see the moment play out, and it puts you right back in the emotional state that you had at the end of Avengers Infinity War, where we got all of the half of the universe and our favorite heroes disappear from Thanos' snap. So the scene opens, and it's just right there. You're just like, the acting in that moment was so great because Hawkeye was just like looking for his family, calling for his boys, calling for his daughters. Such a powerful moment, such a powerful statement, and kind of lets you know what we're getting into for this 3-hour epic film. From there, we see Tony and Nebula on their ship, and we see them having kind of a moment of playing football. I can even think of paper football. And, you know, we see Tony, as we saw in the trailers, having the moment when he's talking to Pepper and hoping that this message finds its way to Pepper. And he's just telling her how much he loved her, how he wanted to save the world. You know, again, we saw this trailer, or saw that moment in the first trailer of Avengers. And we see from there, Tony kind of just, he's weak. He's beaten down. He's affected by, what Thanos did to him as far as stabbing him with his own armor. We see that he's kind of has an affection there, so he's just he's winding down. They're 3 weeks removed from the events of Infinity War. They have no food. They're out of fuel. They're just, as he says in the trailer, they're just in space. We're nowhere to go. So we see Tony kind of closing his eyes, and he's not at peace, but he knows there's nothing really that can happen. So we see him fall asleep, and we see Nebula put him in his chair, and then from there we see this bright light coming to the screen. Automatically, I think a lot of us fans knew what that meant, and yes, we get the reveal that it was Captain Marvel. Now, with me in that moment, I kind of want to fill in the blanks on myself. Now, I don't know if this is going to be addressed in, let's say, a deleted scene in the Blu-ray release, or maybe a comment later on as the film has been out for a couple weeks. Maybe the Russos will address this. But I am to assume that Captain Marvel was able to find Nebula and Tony either with Rocket's information, like maybe he had something that can tell him the location, or at least the idea of where the ship can be from a navigating system, or maybe Tony was able to send some distress signal to Earth by something, because he's a very intelligent man, as we know that. So I am to assume that, and also I am to assume that from the end of Captain Marvel, where we get the post-credit scene, we see Captain Marvel interacting with the Avengers, asking where Nick Fury is. We didn't get that moment in the movie, which was interesting. So I assume that the Avengers talked to Captain Marvel. Hey, my name's Tony. My name's Captain America. This is Black Widow. This is Rhodey. This is the Hulk. This is Rocket. Doing all the introductions, and then they probably tell her, hey, we might have some lost Avengers in space, because Rocket probably said, Nebula was, there, or whatever the case may be. So I assume they told her, hey, we might have some fallen Avengers, somewhere in the galaxy. Can you help us find him? And I assume that's what happened. I want to know what you guys think. How do you think Captain Marvel was able to find Tony? Was it just luck? Because we saw one of the biggest, luckiest things in this movie was the rat turning on the quantum realm machine to get Scott Lang out of the quantum realm. So, and that's sometimes that happens. This is a comic book movies. If you read comics, sometimes things just happen. Sometimes things just happen in life. You just stumble upon things. But I would love to know what you guys thought about how Captain Marvel found Tony Stark and found Nebula in space. Let me know in the comments. All right, so from there, we see Captain Marvel. She saves Tony. We have a reunion between Tony and Pepper. You know, Tony sees the Avengers that remain, and he mentions to Cap, you know, I lost a kid, and Cap tells him we lost everyone, which is a really, you know, just a really somber moment. And then from there, this is where, again, going back to that scene that we see Tony on the ship and leaving that message to Pepper, the acting in this film is just so great, and particularly from Robert Downey Jr. We see the moment where he just breaks down. You know, he's 3 weeks removed, he's ill, the way he was looking was just incredible. As far as not incredible like the way he looked, but like the effects of him being sick and on the edge of death was really nice. And then we see Tony just going at Cap, telling him, hey, where were you? You told me in Avengers, Age of Ultron, which would have been, 4 or 5 years removed from this film, that we would lose together. You know, he brings up the effects from Captain America: Civil War. You lied to me, and he just goes right at Cap, and Cap's just like, Tony, you need to calm down. Tell me where Thanos is, and they go back and forth. Such a powerful scene, and we see Tony collapse, and they put Tony aside in a bed and kind of recuperate, get his energy back up, and that's where we see another clip that we saw a couple weeks ago, where we see Captain Marvel telling the Avengers, I'm going to go get Thanos. I'll be back. I'll see you guys want anything from the restaurant or anything. I love that moment because, again, I think some people, and I'll talk about this as far as character development, that was probably one of my negatives in the film, kind of nitpicking things where, Captain Marvel, I know some people really didn't like how Captain Marvel was so assertive, but for me, that's the same character we got in her film. She's very kind of a hard-nosed. She goes in the attack without really much strategy. She just wants to go in and get the job done. Very similar to Tony Stark, but I love how, that even though we've seen the scene, but Rhodey's like, hey, we're all about that Captain, we're all about that superhero life. And we get the moment where Tony, Nebula tells them, my dad, my father Thanos, ever since I was, I've known him, he's always talked about this goal of getting the Infinity Stones and doing, his master plan. And once he does this master plan, he's going to go off to a garden. And that's where we see Rocket say, hey, a couple days ago from this, from some readings, that the same effect from Thanos' snap in Infinity War happened 2 days ago on this planet. And that's where we're off on the mission. And we get that awesome line from Cap, who in this movie, he's on the edge, man. He's ready to go to war. And he says,
let's go get this son of a bitch.
Right then and there, the Avengers and Thanos round 2. All right, so this is just one of the most, epic badass moments. We see Captain Marvel goes and does some recon on the planet, and she tells the Avengers, hey, there's no armies, there's no defense, it's just him on the garden. And from there, we see Thanos is kind of broken down. I was assuming at that moment that those were the effects from Infinity War, but as we just found out from this previous scene that he used the stones again, and we find out why he used the stones again. So the Avengers comes into his little crib, his little house, and they just attack him. And I love the moment Thor cuts off his arm right off the bat, which has been such a meta moment because in the last year, everyone is obviously saying, hey, why did Doctor Strange not cut off his arm with his magic? Why didn't Thor go for the head? So he cuts off his arm. They ask him, where are the stones? And he tells them straight up, I used the stones, again, to destroy the stones, and there's nothing you could do because I'm inevitable. And he has a moment with Nebula where he said maybe he should have looked at her, or maybe not have been so hard on her. Again, this is based on the first reviewing, or first showing for me. I'm going to watch it again, but I believe he said something of those lines. And he's starting to talk, and then we get Thor with Stormbreaker, chops his head up. You see a little bit of blood. I'm like, this film is just going in, and mind you guys, and you guys know this is how the film, this is it. Within the first 10 to 15 minutes, they kill Thanos, and Thor, of course, says he went for the head, and they're just like, what have you done? Again, Thor, you want to redeem yourself, but you killed the guy that we might need some more information for, so he's obviously dealing with that regret and that guilt. And then the moment where, there's multiple moments in the movie that we get this, but where the whole audience just kind of gasps, we see the title card, 5 years later, and I'm looking at Morgan like, what the hell are we into now? What is about to go down? What happened in the last 5 years? And boy, we find out. So summarizing the rest of the first act, we see Tony now has a daughter by the name of Morgan. We see he's not necessarily content and he's not moving on per se, but he's taken advantage of the blessing that he has, which is his, Pepper was surviving the snap. They now have this child together. They now are going to retire in this cabin, as he said in Age of Ultron. Maybe he wants to do what Clint did with his family, which he does. So we see, he has this new life, but in the reverse of that, we see what the rest of our Avengers have been up to in his last 5 years. So we see Black Widow is somewhat of a leader in this moment. She's kind of communicating with the other Avengers. She's talking to Rocket. She's talking to Captain Marvel, who's kind of a way out of the storyline per se. She mentions that she's doing other missions. You might not hear from me for a while because I'm going to be saving other planets due to the effects of Thanos' snap. We have a conversation with her and Okoye, which I thought was a very interesting line. And I would love to know, again, these comic book fans, for you guys to know the comics, she mentions to Black Widow, there's a earthquake in Wakanda. And then they have a back and forth. What do you do? What are you going to do with this earthquake? There's nothing you can do. It's an earthquake. Is that, and again, comment below, guys, is that a reference to Namor, which is essentially the Aquaman of the MCU? Is that a hint and a nod? I think it is, because Marvel doesn't just do throwaway lines. Again, this is kind of reminiscence without necessarily saying the exact name, but this is kind of like Winter Soldier, where they drop a Doctor Strange name. This is kind of, a hint and a nod towards things to potentially come, which I think is that way, but I would love to know what you guys thought of that comment by Okoye and Black Widow. And then we get the last kind of interaction with Black Widow and Rhodey talking about any luck on finding Clint, who at this time is taking the Rona persona. He says no. There was a bunch of bodies found in New Mexico, the cartel. You should have saw the body piled up. So he mentions to her, I don't even know if I want to find them, which kind of alludes to this dark path that Ronan has taken, Hawkeye has taken. And we see Natasha kind of taking that in, and she tears up. And then we kind of transition into Captain America, who's doing this grieving session, which is a really cool moment, a really cool scene, because number one, I love the diversity that we're getting with the MCU. I'm rocking my Black Panther shirt. We got more women in the MCU with Captain Marvel, Valkyrie, the Wasp. I mean, the list goes on for all the amazing women that we have in the MCU. But we have another thing that was introduced for the very first time. We have our first openly gay character in the MCU, played by one of the Russo brothers. I believe it's Anthony Russo. It might be Joe. I can't remember which one, but it's one of the Russos. So I thought that was a cool moment. But we see Cap kind of talking to them, and then we see Cap, after his grieving session, goes to talk to Black Widow, Romanoff, and they just say, as we get in the trailer, whatever it takes. We're not going to move on. Let's come up with a plan. So from there, we see Ant-Man. We get the scene where we see him getting out of the quantum realm. He goes to see what happened, what's been going on in the last 5 years. He goes immediately to try to find his daughter, Cassie, because he goes to this memorial. He kind of puts two and two together that something tragic has happened to the universe. So he sees his daughter's not on there, goes to his house, which was interesting. I don't know if his ex-wife was snapped during the Thanos thing, because we never really saw Judy Greer's character again in the movie. So it'd be interesting to see if she was, I don't know. It doesn't matter now, because obviously we know what happens in the film, but I just wonder, was she snapped during that time? But we see Cassie, 5 years older. They share that moment, great moment between Ant-Man and his daughter Cassie. I really enjoyed that moment. And then we see Ant-Man going to the Avengers headquarters, which we saw in the trailers. He tells them, hey, this might be a crazy plan. We obviously get some comedic moments with him. He's hungry, he's eating the peanut butter challenge and all this stuff. But he tells them, hey, maybe we can go back in time. Maybe, in the quantum realm, I was in there for 5 years in real time, but in the quantum realm, it was only 5 hours. So then that's when they come up with the plan. They approach Tony about it at his cabin. Tony immediately says no, because he's not moving on, but he's very fortunate to have his wife, Pepper Stark. I don't know if she abbreviated it, but he's happy to have her. And also they have Morgan now, who's his daughter, and he loves and wants to do everything to protect her. But we know Tony. So we knew, so the Avengers leave. They go talk to the Hulk. We get the moment with the comedic moment, and we see for the first time Banner has found a way to use, to keep himself, his mental, his intelligence, but also having the strength of the Hulk. And then we find out, they want to experiment with time travel. Then we go back to Tony's scene, and such a powerful moment, two powerful moments. One, which is kind of foreshadowing. He talks to his daughter, and we see how much he loves her and how much he means to her. And then we have the moment with Tony and Pepper, which was just so well acted and so well played out, that scene where they have a moment. Tony tells Pepper, and I should rewind a little bit, Tony figures out a way to kind of manipulate time and to build a time traveling machine per se to enter the quantum realm. So he finds that out, which was another little minor thing. Was he making this up before the Avengers was there? Like he was able to figure out a time machine like that, or was he making it in the last 5 years? Who knows? A little nitpick thing, but anyway, they have that conversation on the couch, and Tony tells her, "I'll throw it all away. I'll stay with you guys because I want you guys in my life. If I travel back in time, I might not have a way to get back in time, whatever the case may be, or I might risk the chance of losing you guys." So she tells him, which is another line that pays off at the end of the movie, yeah, you'll be able to, you can put this aside, but will you be able to rest? Which, again, keep that line in mind later for the film. But I love that moment they have. We see Tony. He goes back to the compound. He joins forces with the Avengers once again. Him and Cap make an amends to a degree, and they come up with a quantum realm time machine. And now, as Ant-Man calls it, we're going to now do a quantum heist, which was a lot of fun. All right, so now kind of approaching the second act, we now have our Avengers kind of recruiting other Avengers that have either kind of not necessarily moved on, but are just kind of in a different state. We see Rocket and Hulk go recruit the or Thor, which I have my hammer here, who is becoming my favorite. He's still Captain America's my guy, my number one Avenger, but Thor is right behind him. We see Thor has been kind of let himself go, right? He has his beard, he has the gut, which, again, going back to my initial review, that was one of my negatives. Was at first I wasn't necessarily on board with the new decision of how they portrayed Thor, but I was just thinking, this is his 6th or 7th film in the franchise. You can't just do the same thing over and over again. So yes, it played to the comedic moments, which didn't sit with me well initially, having Thor Lebowski, as they call it now on social media. But it makes sense, again, just from the character's mindset. He's lost his dad, his mom, his brother, his sister, his eye, his hair at one point, his hammer. So he's lost so much that he's just given up to an extent. He saved half of the Asgardians, and they now are on, I believe the town that they are is the same town that we get in the first Avenger, Captain America First Avenger, where they find the Tesseract. So I believe that's where their headquarters are now, the new Asgard, as they call it in that sign. So we see the Thor, they don't say Thanos' name, as the Hulk says his name. He gets a little upset there, but they recruit Thor. We see Black Widow recruit Hawkeye, which was a really awesome scene. And I love Ronan. We get him killing people, and that was really cool. But we see them recruiting, and now we're kind of getting into the team. So now that Tony has built this quantum machine, we have our team. So we have Cap, Iron Man, Ant-Man, and the Hulk going back to 2012 to get the scepter, which was the Mind Stone, as well as the Tesseract. And then we have Rocket and Thor going back to 2013, the Dark World, to get the Ether, aka the Reality Stone. And then we have who else do we have? Nebula and War Machine. They go to Morag to 2014, Guardians of the Galaxy, to get the Power Stone. And then we have Clint and Romanoff going to Vormir, I believe is the pronunciation of that, to get the Soul Stone. So now we have all of our players, and now we know where all they're going, and this is where things really get interesting. All right, so breaking down our teams now. So we go back to Iron Man, Cap, Hulk, and Ant-Man. They go to New York, and we see such an awesome moment. So many great moments in that New York sequence. We get the Hulk interacting with the Ancient One, which is a great cameo, and they kind of explain the time traveling rules in this universe. Also mixed in with Quantum Realm, which, again, going back to one of my negatives and kind of addressing it here. The time travel rules really didn't make that much sense to me, but it doesn't have to necessarily make sense because time travel doesn't really exist in reality. So I took it, again, reviewing, thinking about the movie again, I took it as, okay, we're not only messing with time travel, but now we're messing with quantum science. So it would, things can make sense, cannot make sense. It's the rules they established. But I love that moment with the Hulk and the Ancient One. Then we get Cap versus Cap. We get Iron Man and Thor, or Iron Man and Ant-Man trying to get the Tesseract. And then within that same moment, one of my favorite scenes of the movie, and also a very crowd-pleasing moment, we get a call back to one of my favorite MCU films, which is Winter Soldier. We get Cap on the elevator.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
With the same players that we get in his movie Winter Soldier, and they have their little moment. You think they're gonna fight again, but no. Cap just simply says, because he's trying to obviously get away with the stone that he has in his briefcase. He says to them, Hail Hydra. So there's twofold. So number one, Hail Hydra goes to the comic book fans. There's a a couple years ago, very uproar in the comic community about Captain America being Hydra this whole time, which some people enjoyed, but a lot of people did not enjoy. So there's a nod there. And then also, it's just a cool nod because obviously he's playing to Winter Soldier, the effects. That's where we find out that S.H.I.E.L.D. has now been infiltrated by Hydra. So it kind of is a twofold thing. Again, the Russo brothers did such a great job, and Marcus and McFeely, the writers, and obviously Kevin Feige, they did such a great job of pulling in comic book moments, movie moments, and integrated it all in one film. And that was just one of the most coolest moments in the whole crowd. I think, like Morgan, for example, she was like, why is everyone laughing? And I kind of explained it to her to an extent, but I explained it to her after the movie. But I love that scene. We also get a very, very pivotal moment in New York in 2012. So we see Iron Man and Ant-Man capturing the Tesseract, but then they have a little issue there with, the plan kind of goes left. So in the midst of them getting the Tesseract and running into another great cameo by Robert Redford as Alexander Pierce, they take it, but then they have a little scuffle, and Loki picks up the Tesseract and goes into the Tesseract, or uses the Tesseract to travel through space as the Tesseract does. And does that open the gate? Which I think it does. It opens the gate into his show, because I believe the synopsis right now for Loki's show is Loki traveling in and out of the big main events throughout the world, and kind of interfering with the cause and effect, or interfering with the timeline. So very interesting way. Again, this film set the stage. Not only did it close a chapter for a lot of our favorite characters, but also it opens the door for things to come, such as the announcement that we got with these Disney Plus shows. And I love that moment, and I love seeing what Loki's up to. And again, it's not the Loki that died in our Avengers Endgame or Avengers Infinity War, but this is the Loki from 2012 who was captured and defeated. And also they've revealed that he was influenced by the Mind Stone. That's why he was he was the bad guy, because he was influenced by that. So it'll be really interesting to see where his show goes. All right, so staying within the New York scenes, they don't get the Tesseract because obviously Loki took it. So Iron Man and Cap have a moment like, well, how are we going to get the Tesseract? And that's where Tony comes up with the idea of going back to the 70s to not only get the Tesseract, but also get the PIM particle, because they were running out of particles, so they use it to go back to 2012. So they go to get the mission. Another phenomenal scene. We see two things that are kind of foreshadowing. We see Tony talking to his dad, Howard Stark, and having a moment, kind of saying that he's the father himself, and just sharing the moment and seeing how his dad, was hard on him, but there was a reason why, and they kind of have a great moment there. And then we also get another great moment, which was foreshadowing Captain America and Peggy, him seeing her in the window and having that moment. And we also get another great cameo, not only from Howard Stark, but we see a young Hank Pym back in the 70s, and you see his helmet and all that. So great callback, Easter eggs there. But then now transitioning to the Hulk and the Ancient One. The Hulk explains to the Ancient One that, which was another rare cameo, that, Doctor Strange, why did he give up the Time Stone? And she's like, why did he give it up? He gave it up, and she says something must have went wrong, so that's where she gives it there. So now transitioning to the other missions, we have Rocket and Thor, which, again, I didn't go to the bathroom at once, but I think if you wanted to go to the bathroom, that would have been a moment. Not that it was a weak scene, but it wasn't, there was just some moments that necessarily weren't like jaw-dropping, for me at least. We do get some great moments in that scene that plays out. We obviously get Rene Russo coming back as Thor's mom, and she has a really good speech with him. We see a small cameo from Natalie Portman, who, if you guys know, she was not, her and Marvel, I don't want to say they have necessarily beef, but it was said that she doesn't really want to return to this universe. Reasons, I don't know why. I believe she just didn't really, the way The Dark World ended and the way that the director, I think that she wanted Patty Jenkins to be on board, and they went with Alan Taylor and all that stuff. So it was just necessarily some bad blood, but we get, a moment with her. Again, we see Thor kind of having regret and really doesn't go down with the mission, but like I say, he has a really great moment with his mom. So they get their job done. They get the ether, the reality stone, and then we transition to Nebula and War Machine. They're able to share, one of my favorite moments is seeing Peter Quill, with the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy, but they knock him out and they get the Power Stone, and that's where we now jump into some more things in the storyline where we get Thanos now knows Nebula is somehow is connected to her network that there's another nebula around. And this is 2012 Thanos, by keep in mind. So this is where we're interacting with Ronan. He mentions Ronan, and we see Thanos is, he's coming from some mission. He has like blood all over him. And we see 2014 Nebula, we see 2014 Gamora, and all that stuff plays out. But this is where to me, this is where the first act was really somber, and we were getting, we were reminded of the effects of the Infinity War and where our characters are at. And it was I love that slow burn per se, and it leads into the second, third act. But that moment where Thanos finds out about what the Avengers are up to, that's where the film kind of becomes more an action movie and more the epic movie, which again, they were able to play with all the tones and themes. And to me, that's where the shit hit the fan, when Thanos found out. So then we get all that stuff. They get the Power Stone. Rhodey goes back, but Nebula's kidnapped by the 2014 Nebula. But then I did not even see this coming. I didn't even put two together. So now our last mission, our last stone, which is the Soul Stone on Vormir, we get Hawkeye and Black Widow. And I didn't even think one of them is gonna die, because we obviously know what you have to do to get this stone, which is you have to sacrifice a soul for a soul. And that whole scene just plays out. I was just thinking like, okay, they have to figure something out. One of them, do they have to die? But yes, we get that beautiful moment. I think that moment plays out so well because the performances between, Scarlett Johansson and Jeremy Renner, some characters that we obviously know haven't gotten the most shine. Obviously Thor, Iron Man, Captain America get the most, screen time. Even the Hulk gets more screen time with them. And they don't have superpowers, but their superpowers are their smarts, their skills, their agents, things of that nature. So it was so great to see them have that moment, because they're the most, they're connected to the most as far as the Avengers, as far as they've known each other more time. They obviously, Nat is the the godmother of his kids and things of that nature. So that moment was really powerful. And we see Natasha die. She sacrificed herself to make sure Clint can redeem himself with his family. She wiped out her red ladder, as she said in the first Avengers, red on her ledger. So she has that moment, which was so good. But then that opens the door again. Like I said, this movie closes the chapter, but also what next, which is a video I want to maybe do in the next week or so. But anyway, we know Black Widow has a film in the works coming out in the next year or so, and they've already been casting people and all that stuff. So now I know some people saying, okay, this must mean her movie's a prequel, which yes, obviously that's probably the obvious thing, but I don't know. Could it be what's been going down in the 5-year span that we missed between Infinity War and now Endgame? Could it be, who knows? I mean, I doubt it, but maybe it's a film about Jeremy Renner, Hawkeye, and the Hulk looking for the Soul Stone to bring her back. I don't know. But I mean, obviously, like I said, the obvious moment or the obvious thing would be is to have a prequel, but it's just, I would imagine it's just a one-off, because obviously we know her demise. She dies in this film, but this is a really interesting moment at that point. And I would love to know, again, this video is all about the comments. This is all about the interaction. Let me know in the comments what you guys think is going to be the next steps for Romanoff and Black Widow as far as her movie goes, and also is she going to ever return? Which, comic books, characters never really die, but in the movies you want to have stakes, so she might stay dead, because we had some characters that stayed dead. Technically speaking, Loki is dead. The Gamora is dead. Vision is dead. At least we know we didn't even hear anything about Vision in this film, but we know WandaVision is coming out. So I would love to know what you guys are thinking about Black Widow, and will she return, and what do you think her film will be about? All right, so now jumping into the third and final act. Again, we got Nebula, who's kidnapped by Thanos in 2014 Nebula. They figure out a way, Nebula goes back with the Avengers in the current timeline. We think it's the Nebula, or the Avengers thinks it's the Nebula that went off to the mission in the current timeline, Gamora, or Nebula, because no one knows what happened. So we see her infiltrating and messing with the time machine, and we see, like I said, the mission's obviously been accomplished, but now the Avengers find out about Black Widow, and they have a moment at the lake where the original 6 are just, they're broken. This is Nat. This is someone that's been there day one. They all have had moments with her. I mean, hell, she was in an Iron Man's movie. She was in Captain America movie. Obviously, her and Bruce had a romance, and obviously her, Jeremy Renner, and so that was a sad moment. But that's where they say we have to avenge her. We have to reverse this. We have the time stone. We have all the stones now. Let's reverse what Thanos did. So we see Hulk and Iron Man and Thor can make the device. They make the gauntlet out of Iron Man's nanotech, and they put the stones in. And then Thor says, "I want to do it," to kind of redeem himself. They hold him back, but then Hulk says, "Hey, if we saw the effects of the snap did to Thanos, I'm probably the only one that can withhold all that energy and potentially not kill myself in doing so." So Thor or Hulk puts on the gauntlet. does a snap. It affects him really bad, and we actually hear him say later in the film that he was trying to bring back Nat, which I think again addresses that she probably will not come back, but we never know. But he does that. We see Ant-Man walk to the window and he sees birds, like, guys, I think we did it. And then here he comes. Here's Thanos ready to go. And this is where the movie just goes into, it's just, again, we get regret, we get sad moments, we get comedy moments, we get some action moments. But now this is where the film goes to the next level as far as epicness, the most epic moments I've ever seen on the big screen. All right, so I'm going to be a little bit all over the place because there was just so much going on. So as I remember, we get, Thor is now redeemed. He calls for Mjolnir. He goes for Stormbreaker. He braids himself. He gets his war gear going. We get Cap looking like a badass, ready to go to war. We get Iron Man ready to go to redeem himself. The big three versus Thanos. We also see, he destroyed the compound, so the Avengers are somewhat split up. We get War Machine, Rhodey, and Rocket under the debris, and we see Ant-Man trying to save them. And then we get a lot of callbacks in this movie, not only in the MCU, but like the reference Back to the Future and all that stuff. But one of the cool moments in this movie for me, because I'm a big Aliens fan, is when Ronan is underground and we see the riders coming up, approaching him, and he shoots his arrow and sees it, and that was very reminiscent of Alien. I love that moment. And it just shows you again how badass Ronan is. And this movie really showed you how awesome of a character he can be and what he will be in his TV show that's rumored. It hasn't been confirmed, but I'm pretty sure he's going to have a show and him passing on the mantle to Kate Bishop. But anyway, we get the moments at the compound. We get the big three going toe-to-toe with Thanos. We have, Thor going to work, but, having his moments. And I love, again, the callbacks to Infinity War. We get, Thor's doing his thing, but then he gets, his ass beaten at a moment. And then Thanos puts Stormbreaker in his chest, very, very similar to what Thor did to him in Infinity War, slowly putting the axe in his chest. He does that to a degree, but then we get the moment that just blew the roof off the theater where my man, Captain America, he's worthy. He can pick up the hammer, guys. He gets the hammer. He has his shield. He's going at it with Thanos. He uses the shield and the hammer effectively. But ultimately, Thanos, mind you, he does not have the stones. He's able to handle the Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. And you think he's gonna kill somebody right now because Iron Man gets his ass beat, Thor gets his ass beat. They're both on the verge of death. And then, oh my goodness, Thanos with his sword, he slices Captain America's leg and cuts him a little bit. And Cap gets up. The shield's broken at this point, and he's ready to go to war. At this point, Thanos has his armies. He has the Black Order's back. He has the Outriders. He has the Jatari. He has all his people ready to go to war. And you see Cap, such an epic. I want a poster of this. You see Cap versus, standing looking at his army. Very similar to a show that I'm a fan of. And you guys know if you watch my TV reviews, Game of Thrones, very reminiscent of Jon Snow. In the Battle of the Bastards with, the army coming towards him. And very similar to that moment, we hear another great callback in Cap's ear, which I don't know how. I assume they still had their transmitters or their walkie-talkie things in their ears. Even though they dusted it, they still had them. So you hear in Cap's ear.
Don't say it. Don't you say it. Left. Come on!
Those that are a fan of Winter Soldier, on your left was an opening scene in that film. And we see Wakanda, we see my man T'Challa, Siri, and Okoye coming out of the portal created by Doctor Strange. We see Doctor Strange, we see Wong, we see the people from the Doctor Strange universe, and then we get all of our Avengers, Guardians, Spider-Man, and obviously people that's been still alive. Valkyrie comes. We see Pepper in her rescue outfit. We see all of our favorite people. I cannot wait to see this film again because that was just so there was a couple times I cried. I forgot to mention moments that I cried in the film. Black Widow, from a sad moment. Also, I cried during just how epic and how cool these scenes were. But that moment there, I cried. I literally cried seeing all of my Avengers, all my favorite characters on the big screen that we have grown to love in these 11 years on the big screen. It wasn't, I was sad, it was tears of enjoyment. And Morgan was just looking at me like, come on, man. But she knows how invested I am in the MCU. Like, this to me, no knock, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but the MCU is my Star Wars. I didn't grow up with Star Wars. I gotten to Star Wars, you know, as obviously it was out 30 years before I was born, or 20 years before I was born, but, you know, I grew up with these films. You know, I remember seeing Iron Man in 2008 and seeing all the movies up to Endgame, and it really just hit me at that moment, like, God damn, they actually did it. And then again, within that moment, guys, we see a couple things. I have it here on my list. We see, you know, again, Pepper Potts' rescue. We see the A-Force, which is so great. Again, diversity in these comic book movies and just in movies in general. We have the women of the MCU standing up to the Thanos' army, and we see all the women in the MCU kicking ass, and Captain Marvel comes, which I forgot to mention that scene. You know, the Avengers are losing at this point because Thanos throws his rockets at him, but then Captain Marvel comes in, swoops through again. I don't know where she came from. She's just that type of a badass. She comes to destroy his ship and to get things going. But again, like I said, we get the A-Force. We get a really cool moment with Spider-Man where he says, activate, you know, kill mode, which we were wondering what kill mode was in his movie Homecoming. We find out in this film he's going at it. His, you know, iron suit is just killing all the Outriders, which is so cool. And then we also get, you know, before that actually, we get a moment where Tony hugs Peter Parker, which was so great. It was a callback to that moment where Tony, you know, that was actually a moment where you think about it, when Tony saw, you know, Spider-Man's picture earlier in the film, that really kind of got the gears going for him to join on this mission. But that was such a great moment there. And again, like I said, I have been looking at my notes and making sure I don't miss, because there was just so many epic moments in that time. But anyway, more or less wrapping up this recap here, we see that the Avengers say they have to get the stones. They want to put it back in the quantum realm, return the stones. But Thanos obviously gets them. You know, we see Black Panther having the stones. We see Captain Marvel get the stones. You see Spider-Man get them, but Thanos gets the stones. He puts the gauntlet on. He's going to do the snap, but Captain Marvel, they go toe-to-toe. She goes blow for blow with him, and she's actually about to take him out, I think. But Thanos sees how powerful he is. He takes out one of the stones, the Power Stone, and knocks Captain Marvel out. And at that moment, we think he's going to do the snap. Again, is it really just how this movie's going to end? But then we see Iron Man come up in the clutch. He switches out the gauntlet, puts it on, and then he looks at Thanos and says, I'm Iron Man, snaps his fingers, takes out Thanos and his whole crew, which means initially that means that Thanos does not exist anymore. Not only did he die in this timeline, but now he died in 2014. So the way the quantum realm, and if you follow the comics, this is just that timeline. So Thanos is wiped out, I believe, in that 2014 in our current timeline. But it doesn't mean that Thanos isn't around somewhere in any other those other timelines now that we're dealing with this quantum realm technology, which I believe very similar to Avengers, the first Avengers. The effect of the Avengers was the Jatari. All of their technology was available to, you know, it played a part in Winter Soldier. It played a part in Civil War. It played a part in, obviously, Homecoming. People are using this technology now for Age of Ultron. So maybe, I hope that it doesn't happen. I mean, it could happen, but maybe the quantum realm technology that Tony Stark built might end up in the wrong hands. I mean, you know, I think Thanos is done. Obviously, this is a closing the chapter, but I don't know if it's inevitable that he, I don't want to say inevitable, but it might be a possibility that he's still out there somewhere. So we see Thanos destroyed, and then this is where the tears just came. We get the moment with Iron Man dying, because obviously the snap can destroy you. We saw what it did to the Hulk. His arm is burnt up. We'll see what the Hulk goes moving forward in this franchise. We see what it did to Thanos earlier in the film. So obviously a human doing that effect is going to kill him. And we see Tony having a moment with his best friend Rhodey. We see him having a moment with his, you know, somewhat of a son in Peter Parker. And then we see the moment that really got to me, which was the Pepper moment. Because again, like I said earlier in the video, this is where Iron Man has, you know, where Pepper says to him, you can rest now, Tony. And that's where that hits me. Just thinking of it just kind of makes me emotional now, and I can't wait to see that scene again, because it was just emotional. Again, you go back to Iron Man 1, 2, 3, Avengers, Age of Ultron, Homecoming, Civil War, Infinity War, and now Endgame, and just the, you know, he started it all. You know, he's not my favorite Avenger, but I love the performance by Downey Jr. And he, you know, it's one of those castings that is just perfect. He was born to play that role, and to see him kind of go full circle. You know, his goal was to protect the world, to build the suit to protect the world, and you know, he had mistakes getting up to that point, right? You know, he obviously had the moments that, you know, Age of Ultron moments. He creates Ultron, you know, the Civil War moments. He agrees to the Accords, things of that nature. So not necessarily, you know, I joke around and say that he's the biggest villain in the MCU, but it was just mistakes. It was him just he wanted to protect everyone, and in doing so, he did some things that were, you know, didn't work out too well. But at the end of the day, he did something that Iron Man or Captain America referenced in the first Avengers. You know, are you the man to lay yourself on the line? He said, no, I'll just cut the cord. I'm botching that line, but no, he did sacrifice himself, which was just a great callback to the Avengers that started it all. Alrighty, so wrapping up this third act, we get the funeral, which was emotional. Again, just more tears at this point. We get this beautiful shot of all of the Avengers at the funeral. We get some doors opening. You know, we got Thor going off with the Guardians as Guardians of the Galaxy, which will be very interesting to see where that movie goes. It looks like Peter's searching for Gamora, which I would love to know what you guys think. Is he searching for the Gamora in the Soul Stone, or is he searching for the Gamora that's now from 2014? I would love to know what you guys thought there. That's going to be great. I love their back and forth. We see Valkyrie now is the leader of the Asgardians. We get Ant-Man reunion with his daughter and the Wasp, so we see where that will end up going in Ant-Man in Ant-Man 3. Maybe his daughter's going to be part of the team now because obviously everyone's back. We have Hulk again. He's damaged, but he's still alive and up and running. We got Hawkeye back with his family. We got so many great moments, but the film kind of puts everything together where we see Cap. He's gonna he's returning the hammer, returning the stones back to the timeline, and Cap comes out of that that moment, and he's old Cap now. He tells everyone he spent his time with Peggy, which was a great callback to his girl. He wanted that final dance where he was able to share his life with her, which again, interesting moment. Is Peggy now not a founding member of S.H.I.E.L.D.? What is those effects gonna what's the ripple effect of him doing that? Who knows? But then Cap passes on the shield to Black Falcon. So he passes the shield to Falcon, played by Anthony Mackie, who happens to be African American. It'll be interesting to see if he can lead the MCU in a sense. Obviously, Bucky and Falcon have their TV show on Disney Plus, so we'll see where things lie. I think that's going to be a great show, especially with the aftermath of Endgame. Captain America's old now. Does this mean he's gonna just fade away and die off screen? Is he going to be a leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. in some way? Are we going to get some callbacks to Cap? Who knows? But he passes the torch to Falcon, not Black Falcon, and he shares this moment with Peggy. And then wrapping up the film, guys, we have the mid-credit scenes is like an homage, paying respects to the original Avengers, and then we have the post-credit scene, which I would love to know what you guys' theories are on this. To me, it sounds just like Tony hammering, making his iron suit, and he did in his first movie. But it could be him building something for his daughter. It could be many different things, but I think that's what that is. Again, it might be revealed months down the line. But that was a great moment. I would have loved to have seen, though, honestly, I would have loved to have seen maybe a tribute to Jack Kirby, to Stan Lee, to the people that we lost in the real world that had. If it wasn't for them, obviously none of these movies would exist. So I would have liked to see that, but I know Kevin Feige has recently said when Avengers Endgame comes out on Blu-ray, they filmed a documentary about Stan Lee's life and paying tribute to him. So I think they're gonna implement that. But I would have loved to have seen, like they did in Captain Marvel, a tribute to him. But anyway, we get that. And no signs of X-Men, no signs of Fantastic Four, which I'm fine with. I did not want them to, they're closing a chapter, and they opened up chapters, but they didn't necessarily have to integrate them, so that was fine by me. Again, guys, wrapping up this video. Again, it's 44 minutes. Again, if you stayed on this to the end of this video, I really appreciate it, guys. I love this film. I gave it a 4.8 out of 5. My initial reaction when I saw it, when I reviewed the film a couple days ago, but thinking about it, talking about it with you guys, I have to give this a 5 out of 5 now, just because, again, I was able to fill in some of the blanks that I didn't really sit with initially out of the film, like the Thor moment. Some of the characters didn't get as much screen time as I wanted to, which is inevitable, just the same way with Endgame or Infinity War. Cap didn't have that much screen time, and some of my favorite characters didn't have that much screen time. With Endgame, in particular, I'm thinking of Black Panther, but obviously we know, that I forgot to mention that Black Panther, he's now back in Wakanda. What does that mean? Who's been the leader of Wakanda these last 5 years? So, I want a little bit more of T'Challa, but we're going to get him in future films. I wanted more Captain Marvel. As you guys know, I really enjoy Captain Marvel, so I wanted her to be more integrated in the film. But if you guys didn't know, Brie Larson actually shot Endgame before she actually shot her film, so I think the Russo brothers really kind of wanted to leave that, all her powerful moments and all her character moments in her film, and chronologically speaking, they didn't want to, do everything in their film, because obviously her film wasn't even shot yet. So I can respect that, but I want a little bit more Captain Marvel, but I believe she's going to be the leader of the new Avengers moving forward. So, that I piece that together. I'm at peace with the character moments there. You know, initially, I wasn't that excited about what we got with Thanos in this film, but then I thought about it. Infinity War, it was Thanos' movie. He did exactly what he wanted to. His character arc was completed at the end of Infinity War, and then they kill him off at the beginning of this film. So I was like, oh man, I really wanted a little bit more complexity to Thanos. But obviously, again, he had his own film, and he was really, don't get me wrong, he was menacing as hell. Like this Thanos was more aggressive and more of a villain than he was, in my eyes, in Infinity War, because he was just out for blood. He tells Tony and them, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to tear apart this planet. So he was very, very villainous in this film. But you know, I thought about it, and I'm okay with that character moment. So like I said, guys, I'm giving this a 5 out of 5. I'm seeing it again on Tuesday, and I can't wait to kind of piece out more things. But this was a great film. This was an epic conclusion to the 22 films that we got, the 11 years of investments. You know, I have all the movies that I watch. I put money in this franchise. I put time in this franchise, and it paid off tenfold. So the Russo brothers, great job. I believe I read something that this might have been their last MCU film. We'll see. I know they really want to do Secret Wars and some other characters that they're obviously going to have the opportunity to use with the X-Men and Deadpool and all those characters in Fantastic Four. So hopefully, I mean, if it is their swan song, they're 4 for 4 in my eyes with Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, and now Endgame. So kudos to them. Kudos to Marcus and McFeely, who wrote, you know, about 6 or 7 of these films. You know, not only the big ones, but also, you know, Thor: Dark World, things of that nature. So they did a great job of bringing in all those callbacks and those moments and the character moments. They wrote the script beautifully. Kevin Feige, of course, you know, the man behind all this, did a great job. And again, I can't leave out the cast. The cast was phenomenal. The acting was off the charts. The epicness, everything about this film was great, guys. 3 hours did not feel like 3 hours at all. Again, I didn't go to the bathroom once, so I'm excited to see this again on Tuesday. But there you have it. That's my under 50 minutes. I'm going to do some plugs here in a little bit, but that under 50-minute review, guys. Again, if you stuck around to the end of this video, I thank you so much for the support. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and make sure you're following us on all of our social media accounts. But I'm thinking about a couple other videos here, guys, and I would love to know, again, for those that are still in this video, I would love to know what you guys think of these. I have a couple of videos that I want to do for Endgame, one of which is going to kind of do as you guys know, I do trailer reactions on our channel. So I'm going to rewatch the trailers of Endgame, not all the TV spots, but just, you know, the trailers that we got, and see what scenes actually made in the film, and see, you know, if the first, you know, 15 minutes were most of the marketing. So I'm thinking about doing a video with that and have a fun time with that. And then I'm also thinking to do a video of like, where does things go now in the MCU? You know, kind of theorizing about Phase 4 and what I would like to see in some theories. So I would love to know if you guys would be interested in making those videos. I'm probably just going to do them anyway, just experiment with something like that and kind of do some new things with our channel. But definitely keep an eye out for those videos, guys. Again, subscribe to our channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell to stay up to date with our content. Share this video, like this video, comment below. This is what this video is all about, guys. Let me know all of your theories, your likes, your dislikes, your surprises. When did you cry? Did you go to the bathroom? Let me know in the comments, guys. Again, thank you for watching this video. Follow us on all of our social media accounts. Keep an eye out for some more videos coming pretty soon. Also, keep an eye out for some special guests that I was able to do with some podcasting about this film. So keep an eye out for that. You'll see those links in our social media as far as making posts about those, where you can find that. So again, gotta drink some water and go about my day. But thank you guys for watching this video, and we'll see you on the next one.